today we are talking about Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog.
I was surprised how kind of stacked the cast was.
Why is this?
There was a writer's strike.
I don't know. If some generic white man in the laundromat fumbled me and ended up saying, "I love the air," would I have said, "Tell me more"?
So, I should probably not post my plans on the blog. Welcome to Yestalgia. I'm Basil.
Drew.
And I'm Amanda.
And today we are talking about Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. I will give a quick synopsis of I don't want to call it a film or a show. The web series. There we go. Supervillain Dr. Horrible clashes with his nemesis Captain Hammer while trying to join the Evil League of Evil and pining after charity worker Penny. So that is what we're talking about.
Nails it.
What is everyone's experience with this?
Again, this seems to be kind of frequent. I had never heard of it, didn't know that it existed. Brand new to me.
Drew?
I had heard of it in passing. I've heard YouTubers talking about it, but never seen it or anything like that. But I did know of its existence.
Yeah. For me, this was something I saw. I definitely did not see the original run of it, but I don't think it was that far afterwards. Probably maybe a year where it was like a little more widely available at that point. It was on Netflix for a while too. However, yeah, I've seen it a few times. I haven't seen it in many years, up until for the podcast. I just remember really, really liking it and wanting to do a Dr. Horrible costume that I never did. So yeah, that's been my experience with this. And I really liked it back in the day. Does anyone have anything they want to start on with this?
I was surprised. I knew Neil Patrick Harris was in it, but I was surprised how kind of stacked the cast was for this little short YouTube thing.
Yeah, I can talk a little on that if you'd like, or I can wait till later because Amanda does have a question. Or do you want me to just talk a little bit about that?
Well, just about halfway through the movie, and this is not a negative thing, this was just pure curiosity, because I was realizing how short it was and how lightning fast it was, but also how very interesting and kind of curated it was. Basil, and you might not know the answer to this, why is this? Why is this thing?
Why is this? Why does this exist?
Why is this thing?
So I will be able to talk to what you both have referenced. In 2008, not unlike recently this year, 2024, there was a writer's strike. And Joss Whedon and his brothers decided they still wanted to produce something while the writer's strike was happening. That meant anybody in the Writers Guild of America was not going to be working on it. So he basically got some people he knew. I believe the budget was like $20,000 that Joss Whedon put up himself. And I think people got paid peanuts for it. Felicia Day wears her own wardrobe, from what I recall reading. So it was a shoestring budget for a project they wanted to work on that did not need writers other than themselves who were sort of agreeing to work on this outside of the WGA. They were not working with a production company. They worked just with themselves. So let me look up the people because I can't remember. But it is Joss Whedon, two of his brothers, I believe.
Dead or something. The Whedon name is all over this.
Yes. Let me look at everybody who was doing the kind of writing stuff. Okay, Joss Whedon, Zach Whedon, Jed Whedon, and Marissa Tancharian. I don't know. I don't think I'm saying her last name right. She is a producer and writer mostly. I believe she's also done some acting, though I don't think it's a ton. She's done a bit, yeah. Well, she was in Dollhouse, it looks like. She was in the Guild. That's funny. So these were a lot of people who kind of knew each other from other things, I believe, and working together previously. that just came together to do something they wanted to do. So it was circumventing the kind of striking stuff, the things that were going on during the strike. And not that they were scabbing or
Without being
anything. I know that.
sad. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe. Although some of the things Joss Whedon has said makes me wonder a little bit about his feelings about the strike at all, which we can get into the problems of Joss Whedon later on. But yeah, they wanted to make something and distribute it in a way that, again, was non-traditional. So this went out on iTunes first when it was being released. I mean, it's only 3 episodes that are about 15 minutes or so each. And it was on Hulu for a while, and it was also on Netflix for a while. It's not really anywhere now except YouTube, pretty much.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hit it up on YouTube. And the reason that I ask, why is this a thing, is, and it sounds derisive when I ask that, like, why does this thing even exist? No, that's not why I asked this.
It's just very unusual.
It's almost like a poem.
Yeah. I see what you're saying with its brevity, but also...
But it hit so hard.
Yes.
And at the end, you're kind of like, wait, but wait, I need more time.
Yeah.
It's very deliberate.
Yes. I think it's very succinct in what it wants to do. Because I guess initially they had wanted it to be a half hour. And the kind of thing about it was that there is no production company, right? So there's nobody breathing down your neck saying it has to be within this. So they said, okay, well, we need a little bit extra time to tell the story, but that's as much time as we need. And that's it. So yeah, it was a very short shooting schedule, I believe, as well. So yeah, it's people doing something on a I want to say shoestring budget. $200,000 is a lot of money. So I don't want to
to film a movie or to film a thing is not.
Yes, to film a show. I'll call it a show.
To film a project.
It's a lot of overhead.
Yes. I believe their locations were sometimes their own houses and stuff. Yeah, they had theoretically a shoestring budget. Not in the way that like a very amateur filmmaker would have, right? But
It has that sort of like novelty feel. To me, it had a retro feel about it. I, back in the day, had a legit camcorder that you held in your hands, and it had a little tiny tape that went inside of it. And me and my sister, this was not even during our childhoods. This was like when my first year of college, me and my sister would run around with that thing, Blair Witch Project style, and just record shit that made each other laugh and fake commercials and stuff like that. And it kind of almost has that sort of not home movie feel, but like very spontaneous and just use what you have kind of feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what is enjoyable about it in a way is that they found ways that did not hurt the story in any way to keep their budget small, like limited locations, limited actors, things like that, which is interesting. So like when you consider it, low budget is, what do they call it? The mother of invention. But it is sort of a thing. Lowering your budget or needing to lower your budget means you have to be more...
It forces you to be creative.
Yes. And sometimes it works. Sometimes people are trying something, it doesn't work, right? But in this case, it does. I sort of made this comment, I'll probably talk about this in Yestalgia, about Arcane. Because this season of Arcane has done a few things that are very stylistic, and the most important part, 2D or limited palette. And I mentioned when we were watching it, I went, man, they did a good job slicing the budget because I bet they had to. And Billy was like, we are thinking 2 different things. And I said, well, what are you thinking? And he said, I'm thinking I really like the stylization. I think it really works here. And I said, yes, I agree. I think it's great. It's just very likely they did this because of necessity. You know what I mean?
You were on a meta level. You were on a meta level, and he was on the surface level that the creators wanted you to see and think about.
And I'm using that as an example, but I think very similar to that, it is using your budget in a way that does not hurt the project, and in fact, in some ways almost enhances it, because the blog sort of scenario, which I imagine helped really cut costs by having one man talking to a screen, makes it a little more intimate. And particularly, I think it's really interesting because the character is two people in a way, in two senses, in the metaphorical sense and then in the literal sense. So the character is Billy. His day-to-day persona is Billy. And then his supervillain persona is Dr. Horrible. So it has like literal implications of having two characters, but he has almost like two warring sides to him throughout the episodes as well.
His version of evil, he's doing that whole thing in the beginning.
Literally.
And he wants to be in the evil. But what he's saying, I'm sorry, it's not fucking wrong.
Mm-hmm. When I'm thinking about it, it's almost like a version of masculinity, if that makes sense. Because, and I think I'm thinking very into this, but that is the sense that he gets by being quote unquote evil, right? Or the evil league of evil in his mind sort of gives him that sense of power. And I'm sort of boiling power down to masculinity. And that's not necessarily true, but I think in this case, that is very true because outside of that, he himself is actually really kind of a meek person. And he's trying to eliminate this piece of himself. Do you know what I mean?
He is. I actually kind of thought about it maybe in the, I don't want to say opposite way, maybe a mirror version. When it first started out and he's in the laundromat with Felicia Day and he's struggling, and then it moves forward to, the guy that he doesn't like is getting her and he's getting salty about it. I kind of like rolled my eyes for a second and I was like, here we go. Like the whole fucking nice guy should be entitled to the girl type thing that was beaten to goddamn death. But there was,
I think that element exists there. I do want to say, I do think there's an element there that does exist of that, right?
For sure. Yeah. However, I think it was subverted by the fact that the hammer was maybe it wasn't subverted. Maybe it was reinforced by the fact that the hammer was clearly, obviously being manipulative and just a shit. I don't know. This movie had layers, which is ironic because they talk about layers to people.
Well, I think that's part of the interesting thing. I wonder sometimes, because there is some, unfortunately, like underlying incel-y type of things going on with Dr. Horrible.
Yeah.
Because we're only really meant to be in his head, not his head, but like on his side, right? That leaves the other people as not as dimensional, if that makes sense. However, I think the interesting thing is that while Captain Hammer blows, he fucking is a terrible person, right? He blows.
Absolutely.
That is not the initial thing that makes him Billy/Dr. Horrible hate him, right? It's sort of, I think, an idea of masculinity that he cannot. Okay, I know I'm talking about masculinity a lot, but not even masculinity. It's this strength that he, I think, wishes he actually had. I don't think he's honest enough with himself to say that, but he is jealous of that initially, I would say, because Captain Hammer blows. Sorry. No, I mean, it's interesting because it means that Captain Hammer does not have depth. Maybe the character actually does not have depth, right? Or very much depth. And maybe that is the reality of it. But we are seeing it from Dr. Horrible's point of view. So that may not be true. And Penny does not really have much depth either. She's kind of a prop in the film, which is one of my biggest problems with it at this point. Looking back,
she's very much the angel archetype. She has no conflict.
Yes.
She has no decisions to make.
Or depth.
Right. She has no depth. Yeah, she pretty much is scenery and, well, I wouldn't put it that far.
She's more like a prize to be won, right?
Exactly. And I do think that, I think the thing that loans itself to those initial thoughts of like, I don't say incelliness. I didn't get that deep into it. I'm not going to say, no, that's wrong. But the thing that gets into that whole like, oh, eye roll, the nice guy trope is that neither one of them, not the Hammer nor Dr. Horrible, ever once said, hey, you have a great idea and I want to support it. Both of them. Dr. Horrible started out by saying that's a symptom. And he basically, actually'd her,
Yes.
which I found annoying. But I did not find it nearly as annoying as the lip service that Hammer gave her, which was, oh yeah, I'm totally into your gross, nasty bullshit. And he's like wiping off his shoulder when a homeless person touches him and that kind of thing.
Making faces, yes.
Right. It was set up to where you definitely were going to hate the Hammer. But I also hated the actually of, even though he wasn't fucking wrong. There's a time and a place.
That's the Hammer's whole role in this thing.
Yeah.
He also is basically a prop.
Yeah.
Everyone in this is a prop except for Dr. Horrible.
Yes.
Interesting.
It's true.
It's all about him.
At least they are not very dimensional because of that. So they do end up being like prop pieces or like pawn pieces. Not pawn, I don't know.
Well, the fact that this is set up as the whole movie is not like this. For anybody who has not seen it, the whole movie is not him talking to his blog. It's actually very few-ish scenes. It's a framing device.
Yes.
The blog is a framing device, and that alone sort of makes me suspicious. It almost makes me think to myself, did they want me to think that what I'm seeing is the unreliable narrative of Dr. Horrible, like of his own storytelling?
So I don't think so. And the only reason I don't think that is because he sometimes says things on the blog that then in another scene prove that the blog parts are unreliable. Do you know what I mean?
When he was like, I shouldn't have said that. The LAPD was
Yes.
waiting for me when I was going to assassinate the mayor or whatever it was. There were some,
So there are things that sort of prove in the real world that the things he says are not 100% true. The blog is 100% exclusively his own beliefs, right? That is not necessarily true. The thing I find most interesting too is that, sorry, I'm circling back a little bit. The thing with Penny is, and the reason I specifically say incel is because he wants her. He wants her to be his girlfriend. He likes her. In the first blog post that, I guess it's more like a vlog realistically, but he says he's never spoken to her and yet claims to love her. And that gave me such incel vibes because he also doesn't seem to speak to her until like just before she meets Captain Hammer. So what do you deserve? You've never said anything to this woman. Right. You've never approached her. You do not have an existing relationship with this person.
Right.
Not that you deserve anyone, but...
He can't even tell her, I love your hair. He just kind of like trails off and he's like, well, I love the air. Which honestly, if somebody... I don't know. If some generic white man in the laundromat fumbled me and ended up saying, I love the air, would I have said, tell me more? You weird freak. I don't know, but basically, yeah, he was not communicating with her at all.
Yeah. And yet he believed he had more of a right to her or something than Captain Hammer.
Reciprocity.
So I think we've kind of harped now a lot on the problems of it, of course, but I do think there is a very interesting story. And I think it feels full, even though it is so succinct, like we kind of talked about it is. Its brevity makes it seem like you could not tell a full story, beginning, middle, end. You could not have an arc, but you do. And I think the tropes are the thing that kind of strengthen it in a way where you got everything you wanted and it actually was not what you wanted, turns out, right? That's sort of this person striving for something. Technically, they get what they've claimed to have always wanted and have lost what they maybe needed or what they really wanted, right?
If this movie had been, whatever it is, if this piece of media had been too much longer, I think that the ending would not in any way have hit as nearly hard. Because this all seems, in hindsight, really predictable to me.
I think, personally, a lot of people will say things about tropes being a problem or predictability being a problem. And I don't think those are by themselves a bad thing. right?
Well,
Well, you can still tell a great story, even if the story is predictable, even if the story has tropes in it. These are not negatives. There's a reason why they're there. They're there so that we can see those patterns and connect to them, I would argue. In, all forms of media, this happens. Now, if you use it too much and you don't have anything original and you have nothing at all to say, that's different. You know what I mean?
I guess what I'm trying to get at is that, let's say you're on a train and you see signs going by out the window that say, like danger. And that's all it says. You're like, okay, freaky. And then in 20 minutes, you see another sign that says danger ahead. And you're like, okay. And then in another 20 minutes, you say, danger, the whole thing is about to go up in shit. You have had time to be like, something bad is going to happen. But with this, you were on a train. You were a goddamn, like, photon going the speed of light.
You're on a bullet train.
You were on the maglev, and it took you to what was truly, to me, a predictable conclusion. But it took you there so goddamn fast. I was just like, holy shit. Like, I liked that. I liked that abrupt ass ending. Abrupt is a very good word to use to describe the artistry that's going on in this movie. I hated the first, 2 minutes of it. It was necessary, but I hated it.
And that's sort of the thing. Because of its brevity, you didn't hate the first half hour. You only hated the first 2 minutes.
Well, to ADHD, 2 minutes is, 4 years. But that was great. This was a great movie for me.
It's also short.
Yeah.
Being short does make it a little easier to... It gives you a lot of time to think on it more. I'm talking about in terms of our podcast and having to spend time watching something.
During the movie, I did appreciate not having to think about it while I was processing it. It was just like, here's your juice. Here's your fucking juice. Deal with it when we're done.
I also think one part that was like really good. So we talked a little bit about how your budget kind of necessitates being more creative about things. And I think it was really creative because we never saw the thing about the memorial bridge. All we have is a blog thing where he's got a black eye and he is saying, so I should probably not post my plans on the blog. So they turned a scene that technically happened. They didn't show us, they told us. However, they also showed us by having the black eye. And
the little montage.
Well, no, not that part. The part where he says like, oh, I shouldn't put my plans. Because he had like a big plan to kill the mayor or something.
Oh, yeah, they did that at the end too. And it hit real hard.
Instead of showing that scene, because they show a few of the scenes of him doing quote unquote evil things, but they don't show that scene actually happening. What we get is him talking to his blog in the aftermath.
And then cutting away.
Right?
Yeah.
And in the aftermath of it happening, he tells you what he's going to do. So you expect to see that scene, but you don't. You don't see that scene. He comes back afterwards and says, so I shouldn't be telling my evil plans on the blog.
Turns out Hammer is one of my followers.
Yeah. So they use it to make a really good joke and then not have to shoot another scene. And things like that, I think, really work for this, where they take an approach where they can do something silly. In fact, the montage, if you notice, they don't actually change locations. They just change the lighting and the quote unquote season in that montage.
Yeah, there was a Christmas ass beating.
Yeah, so they didn't have to spend money and it's still effective. Also, how'd you feel about Bad Horse turning out to be a real horse?
I was hoping from the start.
I figured it was the whole time. I would have been surprised if he wasn't.
Well, because everyone's name is just like about their power or something, right? Like, I don't know if Dr. Horrible actually has a doctorate of any kind. I know he says he has a PhD of evil at one point. I don't think he does. I don't think you can get a PhD of that. As far as I know. Maybe in the world you could. In this fantasy world you could.
Maybe on the black market.
Yeah.
Yeah, you won't call it evil. You might call it I don't know, political sciences or something. Criminal justice.
Bazinga!
So I was actually satisfied. Like, I was neither shocked nor amazed when it was a literal fucking live ass horse with its gentle long eyelashes and its sweet little soft face. I was like, good. Thank you. Thank you for delivering. Like, I felt like, that's right. It's a normal fucking horse, as it should be. Thank you.
The bad horse thing also lends to like a few jokes, which is great. So like that's a joke, right? I assume it's a joke where they're like, haha, the bad horse is actually a horse. But also his like messengers are dressed like cowboys. Genius. And then there's a part where Dr. Horrible is as Billy talking to Penny. And he's talking about basically looking up to someone. And he said, like, bad horse. And she goes, bad horse? You mean the thoroughbred of evil? Thoroughbred of sin, excuse me. The thoroughbred of sin? And I'm just like, oh my God. It lent itself to like some great jokes.
It was tongue in cheek.
Yeah. The whole thing is meant to be sort of like dramedy, more of a comedy. Definitely, I would categorize it mostly as a comedy, but there's some like dramatic elements to it as well.
Can we talk about the hammer?
Captain
Just
Hammer?
real quick. Captain Hammer, yeah.
The hammer is my penis.
This fool,
Yes.
from the instant he hits the screen, you're just like, here he is. Here's the fucking guy. And this is part of that sort of predictability. Well, no, it's not sort of. It's definitely predictability, but it's like 400 mile an hour predictability.
The first thing that hit my mind, holy hell, they got Nathan Fillion to do this?
Right? I was like, who is he?
I don't think he was very big at the time. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess Firefly had happened.
Yeah.
So there is that. But Firefly was pretty underground around
Right.
then, too.
It got falling afterwards because it got canceled. And people like what they can't have a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, he's a big old doucher in this movie, or whatever the hell it is. This experience.
It's production.
It's technically it would be a web show, I would say. It's a
Production.
3-episode web show. We were able to watch it as like one piece because someone has put it together as one
Right.
piece, but it is 3 separate episodes, technically.
So this fool, basically, this goes back to the costuming. It works. He's wearing
Yeah.
a like dark heather charcoal t-shirt with a yellow circle on it. It's like a yellow circle decal with a hammer.
Yeah.
And he's got like black latex kitchen gloves that are very shiny.
I think they're like welding gloves or something like that. but yes.
Something like that.
And cargo pants.
It's basically like shit you can find in your dad's
Yes.
garage. Not my dad's garage, but some people's dad's.
I think he's just wearing like combat boots too, right? Or is he just wearing combat? I can't remember.
I
What
think
is
he's
he
just wearing like polo boots, like
Yeah.
black polo boots or gray polo boots.
Yeah, the costumes are simple
You
a
can't-
lot of the time,
you-
but not
You can't even call most of them costumes. I think
Yeah.
the biggest
some of them, yes.
costume was Dr. Horrible.
Yeah. But even that, it is welding goggles you can still buy on Amazon.
I thought they were
And
night vision goggles.
they are welding goggles you can buy for like, I don't know, $10.
They did
or
look really
something.
cool. Goggles are so hot and sexy.
And then it's just like a specific kind of lab coat.
Then you put Neil Patrick Harris in there, and there you go. Costume achieved.
Yeah. Well, then he also has the gloves, which are, I think, just the same gloves as Captain Hammer's painted white. I'm almost positive.
Were they painted white?
I think so. So part of the glove is like a rubbery substance, and then part of the glove has more of like a fabric or possibly leather. It's really hard to tell, but because, you know, it's from 2008, so the quality is only so-so. But you can tell because that white does not match the white of the rubbery part. So I think they had to use like either they tried to use the same paint on both and it didn't work out, or just for whatever reason the fabricy part didn't take paint as well, whatever dye or paint.
Like they taped them to his sleeves or something, or his wrists.
Oh, so that it like stays up.
Yeah, so that they stay on.
But his costume changes for only well, I think you could argue it's one scene. It's technically in more than one location where he has dyed his white coat red and now he wears black gloves which
Super fucking cool.
you can tell all they did was take the white coat and dye it red, because if you look, you can see the stitching is still white, because a lot of times stitching on stuff is made of polyester and does not take dye very well. So I'm pretty sure they just took the white one and dyed it red, and that's it.
You know what? I accept that too, because when I saw that transition, I was like, in my mind, I thought to myself, he totally did this himself.
Exactly.
He totally fucking dyed this himself. Because it kind of loans itself to that sort of, do you guys remember Kick-Ass?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
It loans itself to that sort of like Kick-Ass vibe of
DIY,
DIY superheroes, which, you know, it's not supposed to be really that, because he is out here inventing a time freeze ray, which is real. It's supposed to be real. He is inventing a death ray, and all of this crap is supposed to be, it's intended to be real.
Okay. However, I don't think Edna Mode exists in this universe. So where are you going to get a super suit without also then revealing your identity?
You don't think a what exists?
Edna Mode from The Incredibles.
Incredibles.
Was she mentioned?
No.
I was making a joke.
Right. She's not here.
That Edna Mode does not exist here. So there's no one to make there's no specialist making supervillain costumes for them.
I'm going to bed.
And so I think that's the thing. It really depends on what your universe is like, right? Like if your universe does not have something like Edna Mode, right? Like that is in Incredibles, they're explaining why people have super suits, right? If you don't have that, maybe people don't have super suits. Maybe they have to build them, you know? Maybe for him, his expertise is exclusively in these kind of weapons and like tech, and he cannot make a suit. He does not know how to sew. He does not, you know what I mean? I think that sometimes works within the world, which I think in this case, because of the budget, everyone's stuff does look like they made them themselves, you know?
What? I have an answer to this already. What was y'all's favorite song? Because I think we are kind of stepping over the fact that this is a sing-along blog.
It's a musical that, again, won't say that it's a musical, but okay, yes.
Y'all want me to go first?
Sure.
It's tough. It's between the second song, where Neil Patrick Harris is singing against Alicia Day about like, I feel the evil in my heart. And she's like, I feel the rapture in my heart. And she's like, everything's coming up roses. And he's like, everything fucking sucks. I love that one. And I'll tell you why.
I believe that one's called A Man's Gotta Do, because I think Captain Hammer comes in at some point.
The one where they expose Captain Hammer for being the squeamish piece of shit that he is. She is not seen. She's conveniently turning her head every time that he's like, ugh, a homeless touched me. Or like, I guess they're feeding ducks in the park or something. And Dr. Horrible is very comedically like,
in the background,
along with in his bush.
Or at the homeless shelter, he's actually pouring soup behind them with the glare.
Yeah.
He's got a big mustache. Yes.
In that soup scene, I noticed him like just before it's changed back to Felicia Day. I was like, wait, was that? And I went back and saw it. Yeah, he was there.
He also pouring the soup into the bowl.
Right.
Pouring it back into the bowl.
It's right there. Why don't you just pour it in the bowl? You're going to be there anyway, so just go ahead and pour it in the bowl.
Yeah. It was very funny.
Dr. Horrible also does have a line in that song pretty early on where he says something that just made me feel some type of way. He said something about, I don't even know, I'm totally paraphrasing this. He said, I don't even know if I would be changing the status quo if I poisoned the fucking water main. And when you think about that, like when you hear those words, you almost have to stop. Like I had to just, I think I did pause for some reason. It was not because I felt this profundity of these words. I was probably like, I don't know, putting away a can of olives or something. But I thought about those words in my head and I was like, God damn. He's saying the way things are right now are so goddamn bad that me poisoning public drinking water would not be considered fucked up. It would be normal.
Don't worry, we're all gonna have that soon.
Did you guys get that though?
I'm sorry. Yes, it's interesting because he mentions the world being terrible basically through that song. And I'm just sort of like, okay, but we don't see a whole lot of that. We see that homeless people exist. So it's not great, right? Their world isn't great. Is it worse than the real world was in 2008?
I was just plugging in the real world in 2008, and yet the answer is fucking yes. It was that good.
No, somebody who poisoned a well would be considered terrible.
I'm sure this was going on in Flint, Michigan in 2008. I know we all heard about it 4 years later, but I don't think it started in 2012. I don't even think it started in 2008. Like, that line to me of that song.
So I think it was after that because
For what?
the Flint stuff, because it happened because they changed their water source. And I'm pretty sure it was well after 2008, though I may be wrong about the timing.
It was not unique.
Yes, I get that. I do think, okay, listen, we have a second presidency of Donald Trump. So I just think of everything else as not that bad now.
Except, Basil, that it was.
It wasn't. Girl.
It just wasn't for you and my white asses.
It wasn't in terms of the EPA still existed, and it's not going to exist in 4 years now. Do you know what I'm saying? We don't have to talk about this. This is completely separate.
I'm just saying, the world has been ending for certain people throughout time. And the status quo, which is what Dr. Horrible, ironically, a beautiful, beautiful blonde white man, is rallying against, the status quo is supposed to be the core enemy here, I think, not Captain Hammer.
I would agree partially. I think Captain Hammer is a result of the world they live in a way, just as Dr. Horrible is a result of the world they live in, right? People don't exist in a vacuum. They come out in some way for some reason. Now, is that something they are able to explore in this? No. It is way too short.
Exactly, which is a bummer.
Right? We're just sort of given, like, this is the way the world is. Unfortunately, that does make it hard to see how accurate anything Dr. Horrible says is, because we don't know the greater context.
I don't know. That line hit, like...
Anything anyone else want to say?
You guys didn't answer my question. My question. What is your favorite songs?
Oh, I really like Brand New Day. It's a brand new day. Na, na, na.
Is that the
it's
first
when Dr.
one?
No, it's when Dr. Horrible's like, I now am going to go like really all out because fuck Captain Hammer.
Yeah, that one was good. That was my actually like the tie for my first.
It's supposed to be like his turning point song. He's been hating Captain Hammer anyways, so it's not, that much of a change. But for him, he's like, okay, this is it. I want to be in the evil league of evil. Fuck everything else that has been going on with me. I'm doing the thing where I'm going to maybe kill someone because Bad Horse basically said, because my last heist didn't work out, I absolutely have to assassinate someone if I want to go into the evil league of evil. And I think for him, up until that point, he was not going to try and kill Captain Hammer, right? Like, he was like, oh, killing people, maybe that's a little too much, right? And then he's like, oh, but see, this is again the incel shit where he's like, oh, Captain Hammer is dating the girl I love and said he's fucking her. I'm gonna kill him now.
Well, incel shit would be like, I'm going to kill her now.
That's fair enough. Well, except he does kill her is the thing.
Well, do we want to get on that?
We can.
Because that came out of fucking left field for me. As predictable as this sequence was not expecting that. I was expecting the heartwarming, sorry to say it again, incel ending where he won the girl.
Yeah. Especially because right before that, she's sort of seeing Captain Hammer's true colors based on a song he is singing that is really shit. Like, he's acting like he's great, but he's saying some really fucked up shit in it. So
Yeah, he's like, you're all heroes, but actually
but
just
me,
me.
and also you
Yeah.
guys actually kind of blow and are terrible.
You're
and
nasty.
yeah. Oh wait, Drew, what was your favorite song?
My favorite song's actually the one introducing Captain Hammer. When he rescues Penny.
I think that might be Man's Gotta Do.
Yeah, I think that was like the end portion of it.
It was like no, it's the one that's like at the end of the first episode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the one I think you were talking about, Amanda, is later on. I realized it is not
It's the very last one.
the
It's
very last one?
where he turns red and he's like, I'm fine. And y'all, I'm going to talk about it.
Where he says he feels nothing at the very end.
Oh, and he is staring down the barrel of that camera. It's like you see him just flipping on this red doctor coat and pulling down his goggles. And he's like, I'm committed to the fucking bit now, bitches. He's like, I'm going to lean into this shit now. I have nothing holding me back. And the lyrics are such that he's like, I'm leaning into it. I'm feeling nothing. I'm fine. I'm good, dog. And then the very last second of this movie is him stripped of all of that. No goggles, no gloves. Was he not just in a white t-shirt?
Oh, he was in just like very plain, regular ass Joe clothes. I know that.
He was not in his doctor coat.
Yes, he's not. He is Billy in that, right?
He was absolutely in his civvies. Yeah. And he has bags under his eyes. And he's like, I can't remember what the line is, but he's just like, I'm good.
So it says, and I won't feel. So it starts with him in the red and he says, and I won't feel, or something like that. And then he like is slumped down in a chair, a thing. And he says it, a thing. That
whole part of this movie was beautiful. That was so tragic and special. I loved that.
It was a saying around, I believe it was on Tumblr when it was, coming out. He got everything he wanted and all it cost him was a penny. Oof, right? So. Yeah, that was so good. I think the story is mostly good. I think it suffers from knowing things more now or being more aware of things now than around that time it came out. You know what I mean? And particularly like the rise of nice guys / incels, right?
I don't know. I think it was all the same in 2008.
I think so, but I think it wasn't a very widely known or talked about thing. You know what I mean? Like I think it existed, but we didn't necessarily have the language for it.
All
or
there.
Yes.
We just didn't call it out.
Yes. However, again, in a general sense, I think this has a great story structure. The beginning to end is very complete, right? Just to touch a little on what we know now about Joss Whedon. The thing about the writer's strike was he made a joke on the commentary, I guess, of the DVD about Sarah Michelle Gellar. And I guess his joke was at her expense because she had brought cupcakes. He said something about her bringing cupcakes to the WGA striking writers, but like in a way that was derisive, and that he didn't like that she was supporting the striking writers. Which, yeah, so it gives me some like ick vibes a little bit about this project. Do you know what I mean? Oh, maybe you did this project because you didn't agree with the strike, right? And I don't know if Joss Whedon was a part of the WGA at that point. He must have been. But yeah, I feel icky about that. He also is just like not a very nice person, turns out. Like he treats his actors pretty badly. That's what I'm saying.
The only thing that I know about Joss Whedon is that a lot of people don't like him. And I don't like any of his properties. So it's one of those things where I was like, if someone wants to tell me, but I can't be fucked.
Don't like what I mean? Buffy or Firefly?
Nope.
God damn it.
Okay. Keep going. Keep going.
He did some of the Star Wars. He did Star Trek? I can't even remember. I don't fucking know because he sucks. Oh, he did Dollhouse. That was okay. I don't know. That one was a weird one.
I think he did do some Star Trek shit.
Yeah. I think he was in talks to do Star Wars stuff, and then maybe some of the stuff about him being a complete fucking asshole came out.
It was not part of the Prime Directive.
Yeah, he has been known to be gleeful that he made people cry. So, particularly women. He seems to be particularly awful to women and people of color. So,
Well,
there's that.
guess what there was not in this movie?
There is one Asian person. Everyone
Really?
else is white, yes.
Did I blink?
She was part of Captain Hammer's fan club.
Oh,
That's the only
yes.
person.
That very important character.
Yeah. Anyone have anything else they kind of want to touch on?
Alicia Day
Yes. Mm-hmm.
is a guest spot on Hello from the Magic Tavern. And you wouldn't believe it if you had only ever seen her in this joint. You would not believe the fucking filth that this woman says. Like, it's amazing. The words that come out of her mouth. Praise be.
Yeah, I like Felicia Day a lot. She had started Geek and Sundry, which unfortunately no longer exists. But Critical Role came out of Geek and Sundry, actually. That was originally the network that they were broadcasting with. And they've gone under at this point. And I think she was not part of it anymore at that point either. But they also had Tabletop with Will Wheaton, which was also a good show.
She is extremely talented, and you would not know that, really. She deserved more than what she was given for this piece of media.
I think a lot of her stuff has been things like small roles and a lot of stuff. I think she's very funny, though, and she is charming. So she did do The Guild around, I believe, the same time. Maybe a couple years before that, which I was really into and was also a web show. But the last thing I did want to say was, I don't remember which brother it was. One of them does the music for this, but he said something about being inspired by Sondheim, which was really funny because I was like, these songs sound a lot like Jonathan Larson songs. Like they remind me of them. And Jonathan Larson was also very inspired by Sondheim. So like, of course they kind of sound similar, right? But I just thought that was really interesting that, yeah. I mean, if you both have the same influence, you're going to kind of sound alike, right?
I guess I must not know who he is.
Stephen Sondheim or Jonathan Larson? Okay.
Both.
Oh, no. I'm trying to remember. I know Sunday in the Park was one of Stephen Sondheim's. Into the Woods, I believe, is also one that he wrote. Sweeney Todd, that's another one.
Ugh.
Basically, he's written a bunch of musicals that are very popular. So,
Fun fact about me, I hate Sweeney Todd.
do you hate the movie or do you hate the
Stage play.
because they are different?
I hate the content.
Okay, you hate the concept or you hate
I hate the script, the way
Why?
it is written.
What about it?
Do we really?
Well,
Okay.
Just real
curious
quick.
because have you seen the play or have you only seen the film with Johnny Depp? Because they are, like I said, they are different.
Okay. I have only seen the film, and here's what I hate about it. I hated that the Helena Bonham Carter character
Mrs. Lovett.
was a down-ass bitch. I'm sorry. She was a down-ass bitch, and she did some crazy shit, but she was like, hey, man, I'm here to support you. And he was like, no, I want to chase this angelic version of this perfect woman who I think was dead.
No, he wants revenge because she died at the hands of someone else.
And I guess what I'm saying is he threw her under the bus to kind of chase her fucking ghost, in my opinion.
I think it is meant to be. A lot of it is about this obsession, not unlike, say, like The Count of Monte Cristo or something like that, where it's obsessively vengeful to the point where that's all you can see at all. And I think in the play, I believe that Mrs. Lovett is a little more selfish. She's doing a little more for her own gain. She comes off a little...
Forbid women do anything.
No, it's a little more than that.
I know I'm being addicted.
I have not actually seen it, but I know it is different. I know particularly Mrs. Lovett is rather different. from what I've heard. So yeah, that's all I'm saying. But he wrote the play. He did not write the film, obviously. And well, in a way he did, but yeah, they changed it, obviously. And then Jonathan Larson, the problem is he died really young. So his most well-known play is Rent. Same thing with that in the film, though. The film is pretty different. Well, yes and no. There's some mixed messaging in Rent. I don't like Rent as much as I used to, but Rent was like my first big musical that I fell in love with. So he also did Tick, Tick, Boom. There's a musical biopic about him that Andrew Garfield plays Jonathan Larson. And it's called Tick, Tick, Boom, which is another play that Jonathan Larson had put on. Highly recommend the movie. Billy really loves it, too.
All right, pillars.
Yeah, back to Dr. Horribles. Is there anything anyone else wants to say before we wrap up?
Oh,
No.
Okay. Y'all ready for
Our yes/nostalgia?
your conclusion? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Who wants to go first? I'll go first.
Okay.
This is a tough one. This was probably the toughest one for me. A lot of things I appreciate about it. A lot of things I found confusing. This, I keep saying movie, but this piece of media, for lack of a better term, it confuses me. It is abrupt. It is a lot of adjectives that I don't like. But at the end of the day, at the end of this movie, I literally put my hand on my mouth and I was like, oh God, beautiful. Loved that ending. It was sad and it was bad. Loved it. Loved the real horse. Yestalgia.
Whoa, what a surprise. Amanda loved the horse.
I loved the real horse.
Sorry. Drew, would you like to give your verdict?
yeah. I thought it was a short yet fun ride. I enjoyed the characters. The songs were fun, and I thought there were a lot of little things to pick out. I'm sure if I watch it again, I'll find even more. And yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. Nostalgia.
I do want to. It goes by so fast. I was like, I need to watch that again because I know I didn't get it the way it was meant to be gotten.
I don't think that's necessarily true. You got the broad strokes, and that's enough, right? On my end, I mean, I think that it has its problems, especially watching it in 2024. However, and we already talked about that, so I don't have to really go into that. However, I think that the story is succinct, which is a pro for me.
Mm-hmm.
And because it is succinct, you do not have to invest a lot of time in it. Again, another pro for me. Well, I don't know. I watch lots of movies and stuff. And I think the overarching story in a general sense is quite good. I think it does a really good job of telling it as well. And yeah, the ending is heartbreaking. You're leading up to something that is
Destiny.
kind of its concluding message almost about this pursuit of greatness or power or whatever. So I think for me, it's kind of a soft nostalgia because I do think that it is problematic. That said, problematic media doesn't make it
Bad.
well without any worth, I guess, or without any
Yeah.
enjoyment or without any good parts, right? So yeah, it's a nostalgia for me for the most part.
Good job, Dr. Horrible Sing Along blog.
You got yeses from everybody. Yeah, so that has been our episode on Dr. Horrible's Sing Along blog. Thank you for listening. If you want to like, share, or comment, we would appreciate that.
Just tell all your friends.
Yes, tell everybody. And hopefully you will join us for our next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye. Do, 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 do.
Catch you later.
Your dog certainly has a surprised look on his face. Yeah.
Well, that's because you're looking at his butt.
Oh. Then he's certainly not going to enjoy that treat that I just fed to him.